Good afternoon. My name is Patrick Marcinko. I'm a financial advisor at Bogart Wealth. And today we're going to talk about Net Unrealized Appreciation, or NUA for short. Now, here to talk to us about NUA is Sydney Rutledge.
Thanks for having me, Patrick. Yes, I'm also a financial advisor here at Bogart Wealth. I think a natural starting place when it comes to talking about NUA is that definition of it. So Net Unrealized Appreciation is the acronym. At its base, what NUA is a tax saving strategy that you can be used with your employer stock within your 401k. There's a couple of different accounts that are used as part of the NUA transaction. One of those is going to be the 401k, and then there's also a brokerage account that comes into play as well. The big thing with NUA, there is an opportunity with taxes. Can you touch on that a little bit, Patrick?
Absolutely. So the entire kind of strategy with NUA is we're ultimately looking to lower your tax bill on that employer stock. And so you talked about the two types of accounts, brokerage account, 401k. What we're really looking at there is when we do a withdrawal, right? If you withdraw from a 401k, withdraw 100 grand, that's going to be taxed just as if you had a salary of 100 grand. It's often, ordinary income is what it's defined as. So let's say we sell the employer stock the first year of retirement, you withdraw that for your cash flow. Well, we're going to pay ordinary income on that. Now, a brokerage account is a little bit different. A brokerage account, we only pay something called capital gains. So we take what you paid for the stock, whatever it is worth now. Likely, if we've been buying employer stock for decades, hopefully, if it's been a good stock, we're much higher than what we paid for it. That delta, that appreciation, that's taxed at a much lower rate, sometimes 0%, oftentimes 15%. And that, in many cases, is going to be lower than if we took it right from the 401k itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There's also some pretty specific conditions that have to be met when talking about the NUA transaction as a whole. So the first, and one that we've already kind of mentioned, is that it does only apply to that employer stock within the 401k. It's not going to apply to shares that you bought outside of the employer plan. It's also not going to apply to non-employer stock. So anything else that you have in other accounts or other retirement accounts. The other condition that has to be met, and this is one that a lot of people forget about, I find, is that it does have to be the process of declaring NUA does have to be part of a lump sum distribution of that 401k retirement account. So you can't do it in pieces. It does have to be part of an entire account distribution. And then that last condition that has to be met is it has to coincide with a life event. Usually retirement is the biggest one. That does count as a life event. And that's usually when we see people utilizing NUA. Other triggering life events can be death or divorce as well.
And I think, as part of that, a quick tip to that, we'll do, rollover sometimes, and then there's that residual dividend that we'll post. And we just to be very clear, everything on December 31st, we got to be at zero. And so having an advisor guide you through that and have reminders in place is going to be crucial to making sure this is set up. Now, there's a timing for the taxes. We talked about when do the capital gains come into effect? When does the ordinary income? At what point is each taxed? Can you talk a little bit about when taxes are due when we execute this strategy?
Yes, absolutely. So that is a huge piece of it because in some cases, NUA can be taxable. There are specific situations where it may not be taxable. That's where your financial advisor can come in to run some analysis behind that particular thing. When it comes to taxes due on NUA, I usually have my clients, if there is a taxable component of NUA, I usually have them make a quarterly tax payment when it comes to those NUA shares and the taxability of them. In some rare cases, I have seen people actually time their retirements and the NUA declaration around that tax bill. So for example, they will work for an entire year and then retire effective maybe December 1st. So they have 11 months of income. And then we'll actually push that 401k rollover and the NUA transaction into the following tax year so that it doesn't all get taxed in the same year. So there are some timing considerations as well. What do you normally see with your clients?
I think a big part of it is, when we're looking at when the tax comes, the first thing to acknowledge is the tax is only going to be on what we paid for that employer stock. But we also don't have to, for folks that have really built up a big position in their employer stock, we may not do all of it, right? Correct. So there's a fractional component. But when we declare NUA, at that point, we are taxed on the cost basis. So if we paid $10 for your company stock's now worth $200. We're only paying tax at that point on $10. Now the appreciation of that is going to be, eventually taxed when we sell. So talk a little bit about that. What do people ultimately do with these NUA shares? It's one thing to get them out and get this preferential tax treatment, but how does that really help them in retirement?
Yes, definitely. There are strategies that can be used for income when it comes to those NUA shares. The whole basis of NUA, you're not going to realize the tax savings of those NUA shares if you never sell them. If your plan is to take them out as part of an NUA distribution and then just hold on to them and have the legacy component pass on to your children. One other unique fact about NUA shares is that they actually do not receive a step up in basis when they pass on to your next generation. So a lot of people will keep low basis shares that they purchased in those non-qualified accounts in hopes that they will get that step up in basis when they pass to their next generation. That is not the case with NUA shares. So if you're not planning on selling those shares, you're just going to hold on to them, then you're not going to realize the tax savings of it. One of the most common ways that I see NUA shares, and one of the most beneficial ways that I'm using this strategy with my clients, is if we're talking about an early retirement. So that is pre-59 and a half, when those retirement accounts can be used for income. I will have my clients who are using those for early retirements do NUA and then sell the shares that are being taken out of a brokerage account, so they don't have that 59 and a half time frame, and they use it as an income strategy in those early years of retirement.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Sydney, I think we've covered a lot on NUA. Any last tips you want to share?
I will say it is a very complex tax strategy. So always encourage, if this is something that you think may be part of your financial plan, definitely consult an advisor. Highly recommend that you speak to a certified financial planner as well, if this is something you think might make sense for you. That's all I got for us.
And just remember, December 31st, we have to be at zero in the account.
That's right.
With that,
That's right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.